Welcome to This Explainer, where we're going to dive really deep into the ultimate biological masterclass of human performance, longevity, and recovery. Now, we aren't just going to talk about the standard advice of, getting 8 hours of rest. No, we're going to reason from first principles. We want to truly understand the molecular, the cellular, and the endocrine mechanics of exactly how your body repairs itself, and how our modern lifestyles are quietly dismantling those very systems. So let's kick things off with this ultimate biological mystery that so many of us face. It plunges us right into the profound implications of our biological clocks. You know the feeling, right? You're completely exhausted all day, you finally collapse into bed, but suddenly, boom, at 3 a.m., your eyes snap open and your brain just goes into overdrive. It honestly feels like a psychological problem, a racing mind, but I promise you it is deeply, deeply physiological. What you're actually experiencing here is the hyperactivation of your HPA axis. That's your hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. And when it's out of whack, it completely derails your natural ability to rest. We call this the classic tired and wired state. Your body's stress response system has become so fundamentally dysregulated that it's just failing to send the right hormonal signals at the right times. It traps your nervous system in this chronic, looping state of inappropriate alertness. Chapter 1. The master circadian clock. To really understand this systemic failure, we have to look at the cellular architecture of time itself. Your body doesn't just react to the world around you, it anticipates it. And it does this through a centralized biological pacemaker tucked deep within the hypothalamus of your brain. Now here is a truly fascinating biological quirk. The master clock in your suprachiasmatic nuclei is genetically pre-programmed to cycle on an average of 24.2 hours. Not exactly 24. This means, hypothetically, if you lived in a pitch-black cave, your internal clock would naturally drift out of sync with the Earth's rotation. So, to stay aligned, your biology literally demands a manual reset every single day. And this daily reset relies on a vital causal chain called photic entrainment. When specific wavelengths of morning sunlight hit your retina, they excite a protein called melanopsin. That excitement triggers a fast electrical signal directly to your master clock, flooding those cells with calcium and firmly anchoring your biological time for the rest of the day. It's like syncing your watch with the atomic clock. Right down inside those cells, there are these transcriptional, translational feedback loops. They act as microscopic gears, generating self-sustaining molecular cycles that dictate your entire physiology. Think of the proteins clock and BMAL1 as the accelerator, right? They build up purr and cry proteins all day long. But once enough of them accumulate by nightfall, they actually act as the brakes, shutting down their own production. This tiny, microscopic oscillation governs everything from how you digest food to how your immune system functions. But here's the crucial point. Your desire to sleep isn't just driven by one mechanism. It is a precise convergence of two distinct biological forces. You have process C, which is that highly rhythmic wave of alertness driven by our master clock, and then you have process S, which is the mounting, heavy physical pressure to sleep that builds up every single second you are awake. Watching this dynamic unfold is incredible. As you burn energy throughout the day, a byproduct called adenosine physically accumulates in your brain, binding to specific receptors to drive your sleep debt. That's process S. Meanwhile, process C acts as the rhythmic gatekeeper. You only fall into really high-quality sleep when that heavy adenosine sleep debt aligns perfectly with the cooling body temperature and rising melatonin of your circadian drive. They have to match up. Chapter 2. The anatomy of sleep deprivation. When these two processes become misaligned, whether that's from late-night blue light, chronic stress, or just cutting your sleep short, the cascading biological failures are immediate. They are systemic. We literally cease to function as integrated organisms and begin to break down, starting with our most advanced neural tissue. Just a single night of total sleep deprivation fundamentally starves your prefrontal cortex of glucose. You are physically crippling your executive function and your decision-making capabilities. And as your logical center powers down, your amygdala, that primal threat-detecting center, becomes hyperreactive. You literally lose the neural hardware required to control your impulses and regulate your mood. You're flying blind, emotionally speaking. And incredibly, skipping just one restorative sleep window can plummet testosterone levels by nearly 25% in healthy males. That shifts the entire body into a state of catabolic dominance. So instead of synthesizing proteins and repairing tissues, your body actually begins breaking itself down. It's a massive physiological trade-off. Chapter 3. cortisol and metabolic feedback loops. This endocrine collapse doesn't just stay isolated, it immediately spills over into our metabolic health and our insulin sensitivity. Your stress hormones and your blood sugar are locked in an intimate biological dance, and sleep is the music that keeps them on beat. Tracking this chronologically gives us the exact answer to our 3 a.m. mystery from earlier. Sleep deprivation flattens out your beautiful natural cortisol curve. It replaces your restorative midnight low, the nadir, with an abnormal hypoglycemic stress spike that totally ruins your deep sleep. See, when your system is dysregulated, your blood sugar can drop dangerously low overnight. Your brain perceives this as a life-threatening crisis, so it dumps a massive spike of cortisol and adrenaline to force your liver to release glucose. That adrenaline hit, that is exactly what jolts you awake at 3 a.m. with a racing heart. And this feedback loop is absolutely undeniable. Up to 62% of people dealing with glucose dysregulation are also battling poor sleep, leading directly to transient insulin resistance. Your body becomes less capable of shuttling glucose into your muscles, so it just sits there in your bloodstream. This creates systemic inflammation and those fierce, uncontrollable sugar cravings you get the next day. Chapter 4. The Glymphatic Waste Clearance System. Beyond hormones and metabolism, this loss of deep non-REM sleep actually shuts down the brain's critical overnight waste removal infrastructure. Because your brain is a highly metabolic organ, it generates massive amounts of cellular exhaust, and it relies entirely on sleep to take out the trash. Emerging genetic science reveals how these microscopic water channels literally wash your brain of toxic proteins while you dream. During deep sleep, the glial cells in your brain actually shrink in size. This allows cerebrospinal fluid to rush through these aquaporin 4 channels, powerfully flushing out the neurotoxic byproducts of daytime cognition. Now here's where it gets really serious. If you carry specific genetic variants and you restrict your sleep, you're actively accelerating gray matter loss in the precise brain regions responsible for memory and decision-making. Sailing to clear out proteins like beta amyloid, which is infamous for its role in Alzheimer's, well, it isn't just about feeling a bit groggy, it is an independent driver of actual structural brain shrinkage over time. Chapter 5, Hydration and Osmotic Recovery for Sleep. So it's clearly not just about time in bed. Physiological hydration dictates the efficiency of this entire neural network. The fluid dynamics of your brain determine how effectively it can clear that waste, regulate its temperature, and sustain healthy sleep architecture. This is why using alcohol as a nighttime downregulator is a catastrophic physiological error. It suppresses your antidiuretic hormones, forcing fluid excretion. It drains essential electrolytes, and it causes actual cellular contraction in your brain. For every standard drink, you are flushing out massive amounts of the exact minerals, like magnesium and potassium, that your nervous system desperately requires to transition into deep, restorative sleep. To fix this osmotic damage and actively support your biology, clinical studies show that adding sodium, potassium, and glucose rehydrates your systemic tissues 40% faster than plain water alone. When you're completely depleted, plain water just flushes right through your system. You need the electrical charge of these minerals to actually pull the water back inside the cells. And the data here speaks volumes. There is a remarkably strong positive correlation, 0.800 to be exact, between targeted fluid intake and the stability of your REM sleep. By maintaining proper osmotic pressure, you physically prevent the cellular contraction in the brain that jolts you out of your most vital dream states. Chapter 6, NSDR and Nervous System Regulation. So with all that in mind, how do we manually rescue our biology when our systems are exhausted, our HPA axis is totally dysfunctional, and our cortisol is sky high? Basically, how do we break that tired and wired loop when we just can't force ourselves to sleep? Well, by utilizing non-sleep deep rest, or NSDR protocols, we can actively shift our autonomic nervous system out of that frantic, sympathetic fight-or-flight state. We can replenish dopamine without the grogginess of a nap. Through guided body scanning and very specific breathing cues, NSDR safely and effectively forces your physiology into the parasympathetic rest and digest mode. It physically lowers your circulating cortisol and resets your neurochemistry so you can finally just relax. We've unpacked the definitive blueprint of your biology in this explainer today, diving all the way from the microscopic gears of your master clock to the powerful mechanics of your nervous system. But I want to leave you with this final thought. Your cellular biology is remarkably resilient, but it is constantly waiting for your instructions. So ask yourself, are your daily habits feeding the rhythm, or are they breaking the clock?